Hello, friends. Yeah, trying to get a feel for this setup. I am, first of all, I should say welcome. My name is Carmen Shank. Welcome to Voice Journal. I am doing a live today because this usually takes less time, so this is an experiment to see if I can spend less of my time if I do a live versus making a video, because the making of it, the editing of it, the uploading, all of that is time consuming. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about the questions that people have about chemo hair and chemo hair loss specifically. So I'm going to go through a couple of the questions that I found, and if you have other questions and want to put them in the chat, that's fine too. But let's just start out with some basic stuff. Oh, brother. And just like that, I lost the list. At what stage of chemo does hair fall out? Now, I asked this question of the nurse navigator in the oncology department when she was, when we were going through the material together. And her answer was at chemo number 3 is when you start losing your hair. I think I must have not asked the question that I intended to ask, though, because mine started falling out immediately. After chemo number 1, when I ran my fingers through my hair, I was coming out with hair in my hands. It was hair on my pillow. There was hair in my brush. There was, every time I took a shower, there was hair in the drain. Anytime I did anything with my hair, there was hair loss. And that was between first and second chemo. Now, between second and third chemo, well, and I was doing a variety of haircuts because I started out with pretty long hair. Oh, by the way, see my port? Sorry, it's not a very attractive sight, but well, yeah, I might as well show you. This is a port. It has a little tail on it that goes up here into the vein beside, well, a vein close to my heart, and that's where the chemo goes in. So this is, this makes it possible for them to access a port rather than starting an IV every time. And that's good news, because that's so much easier on me, because chemo hurts when it goes in your arm and it can collapse a vein. But I have completely gotten off the topic, so I'm happy with my, I'm happy that I have a port. Anyway, so I did a variety of haircuts going shorter and shorter and shorter. You can see that on the last video that I made. You can see that progression. But between second and third, I decided to add a little bit of purple color to my hair just to refresh the color, which was kind of a mistake because the weight of the conditioner with the color in it combined with some tangles in my hair meant that it was actually coming out faster than it would have otherwise, I think. So I actually sat on a chair while my husband tried to sort out the tangles, and by the time that was all said and done, because, you know, in the back of my head I had my natural colored hair, but in the front I had areas that were bleached, and then the bleached areas were colored purple and fuchsia, etc. And so that's what my hair looked like before this whole chemo journey began. But the fact that that hair had been bleached meant that it naturally tangled anyway. And so the combination of naturally tangling hair plus coloring conditioner, because I use Overtone, it's the least toxic hair dye I've found, which is marvelous stuff. But when you've got chemo in your hair already and it's breaking down, that was not, I would not recommend that. So at that particular point, my hair began to come out in clumps. So that was between chemo number 2 and chemo number 3. So I am into the cycle of chemo number 4 now. You can see, if you got really close, you could see that I have some hairs that are maybe a third of an inch long. When I buzz cutted it, I can still see that there was hair there, and I've continued to lose hair because some of it's darker. You can see in the back, it looks a little bit like male pattern baldness. I have a darker area in the back where you can still see. And on the top, there's very, very little left. But I had a staph infection, and so I was on an antibiotic for a week, and they postponed chemo for chemo number 4 for, yeah, I'm not sure I have all the details right, but chemo number 4 for a week, or number 3, I think maybe it was. I don't know. Yeah, it was number 3. But what happened was that gave me a week, an additional week without the chemo in my system as much. And that's when I think this little bit of hair right here grew. So I got a little growth spurt actually during chemo from having a week off of chemo. So I think it's that was kind of interesting. So I buzz cutted my when it got really bad. I had cut it down to a pixie cut, but when it had gotten really super patchy and just couldn't be tolerated anymore at that look, I went ahead and buzzed it. My husband helped me, and I have buzzed the back again since that happened, just so that I could be a little bit more comfortable being out and about. I haven't actually left the house bald. This is something I do around the house, but actually being out in the air. Usually my head is cold, so I'm usually wearing a cap just because my head is cold. But sometimes when I know I'm going to be around people, just for their comfort's sake, sometimes I'll wear a wig, that kind of thing. Just so, it kind of depends. If you know you're going to a place where it's okay for people to be looking at you and talking about breast cancer, and you're okay with that, that's fine. For me, most of the time I feel like where I'm going, I'm not the center of attention, and so I will at least wear a cap or whatever. But I think I'm growing into my baldness to some degree, and being more and more willing to go places as a bald person. So we'll see. And pardon me, that's a chemo side effect right there that you're noticing. So does chemo mean hair loss? I think there are some kinds of chemo for some sorts of things that don't mean hair loss. Like there's a chemo drug that it's for people with skin cancer, and they're applying it like a lotion. That I don't think is a hair loss chemo. But for the most part, the chemos that people get that are dealing with breast cancer and things like that, these are going to be hair loss chemos. Now, I can't tell you which one of my 4 big drugs is the chemo, is the one that's taking my hair. I did ask that question and I did get the answer to that question, but I don't remember. So, the next question is, how does chemo hair loss start? And yeah, chemo hair loss starts by you run a brush through your head and there's more hair in the brush than usual, or you take a shower and there's more hair in the drain than usual. It's not painful. It's not. You're just noticing, and if your hair tangles, then you get the usual tangle hurt. But yeah, and that's the next question. Does chemo hair loss hurt? Chemo hair loss does not hurt because there's 2 answers to this. The first answer is it doesn't hurt because you're actually losing the follicles. Chemo is actually interacting with your follicles, and so you're losing them. So you're not losing hair by the root, or it's not being pulled out by the root. You're losing the follicle, which means it's no longer attached. This is not a painful process. It can be painful though if your hair tangles, that the old hair coming out is tangling with the hair that's still connected, and then that can be painful. So, but generally speaking, hair loss from chemo is not painful. Is that making sense so far? Next question, does hair lost to chemo regrow? And the most common answer is yes, it does. It's not that way for everybody. There are apparently some uncommon cases where it does not regrow. So my sympathy right up front if that happens to be you, but for most people, it's going to regrow. I'm hoping mine comes back white. My grandmother had amazing snow white hair, and I would love that. I mean, I admit that I would dye it all kinds of colors. Of course, it would end up being pink or whatever, or purple or something, but to have a base of snow white hair would be amazing, and I would love that. I'd also like, if I could place my order, I would also like to have a little curl in it because I've had super, super straight hair all of my life. But from what I've heard from people saying about their experiences, that it came back different. Their post-chemo hair came back different, but it didn't necessarily stay different for all that long. So it kind of eventually morphed back into what they were used to. And then how to deal with hair loss. Well, this is a very personal, very, very personal question. For me, what I decided to do was that I was not going to think of it as my hair being stolen from me. I was going to think of it as my offering that I was giving up. So I had pretty long hair when I started, and so I just cut shorter and shorter cuts. It was my intention to make it pretty gradual and do the kind of this mathematical thing. But when I began to realize that this this thing was going a lot faster than I expected, and combine that with what happens with chemo is that you just, I mean, I felt like my energy just went out the window. So I just didn't have the energy for big haircuts. And so I didn't have the energy for a lot of haircuts, which was my plan to go from long hair to short hair kind of in increments. But what I did was I went from long hair to shoulder length hair to a chin length bob to a pixie. It was basically those 4 steps. I did some bangs immediately, but that didn't feel like a whole haircut. So yeah, it was basically long hair, shoulder length, chin length, and then pixie. And if you want to see all the pictures of all that crazy, that crazy transition, see the previous video. The pictures, and actually some pictures of me as a kid and some pictures of me with pixie cut, because I wore a pixie cut for years, and I'm aiming for a pixie cut here shortly when my chemo is over and I'm ready for, and when it's growing out some again. So that will be fun. But my journey has been one of determining that I was going to do this on my terms. That the autonomy and the agency that cancer takes from you, for me it was huge to be able to hang on to that, or to be able to assert my way of doing it my way. That meant a lot to me. So I went ahead and did the cuts. My husband helped me, but I've cut my hair all of my life, so doing the cut myself was not a big deal. Again, like the energy is a part of it, but it was something within my skill set that I could do. So yeah, I think if you are dealing with chemo and are really considering how this upcoming potential hair loss could be for you, I just want you to know that it's okay. If you've got anger and frustration and fear and all of those kinds of things, all of that's perfectly natural. And what I would encourage you to do is to sit down with some blank paper and just write it all out. Get all of that negative emotion out of you. The fear, the anger, this is not fair, why is this happening to me, all of those feelings, go ahead and just get it out on the page. And if you want to burn the page or you want to flush it or whatever you want to do, that's fine. Keeping the page is fine too. But getting it out makes it possible to create an environment in your heart and your spirit where you can actually focus more on your healing and less on the loss aspect of it, okay? And less on the anger and the negative, because it's hard to heal when you've got a lot of that negative stuff running around inside you. So my biggest advice on how to deal with chemo hair loss is just write about it. Write it out. Write all the negative emotions out to make space for a new positive. There was a crafted prayer that I would come back to again and again and again as I went through my chemo hair loss. And this is how it sounds. Here's my crafted prayer. I am making my hair an offering. It is not stolen from me. I give it to the one who gave it to me. Giving my hair is an embodied prayer. So that's those are words that I repeated and that I came back to again and again, because that's what felt real to me. That's what felt like doing this my way felt to me. So yeah, I recognize not everybody has that approach to chemo hair loss, and that's fine. And that's fine. We all can approach this differently, and that's fine. I am out of time. I am loving hanging out with you. If you have a new cancer diagnosis, my heart is with you. Please know you're not alone. Come back to the channel anytime. Leave me a comment. If you've got questions, I'm here to answer. And I'm answering from my experience, not from something I learned in a book, because this is my story too. So thanks for watching. May God be with you in this process. And I gotta figure out how to end this. I don't know. There's gotta be a button to push somewhere here. And anyway, yeah, I'm gonna try to figure out how to end this thing. And then Yeah, I'll see you. I'm probably going to try to post another video, not tomorrow, but Monday. We'll see. I'm trying to make this habit that despite how I may feel on sometimes some days during the chemo cycle when I just don't have the energy for it, I'm still trying to make a habit of sharing my story, of talking about how I am finding my voice, I'm learning new habits, I'm, trying to find my higher ground. And so that's what I'm here to do. And if I can help somebody else along the way, that'd be awesome. Okay, where's the button that I push that winds this thing down? Anybody know? Oh, that's the other side of the room. I'm glad you saw that. No, really, there's gotta be a way. Okay, there we go. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you on Monday.